As always, in such situations, Israel will present all the evidence it has, and it is not going to convince anyone about anything. In such a case, each of those you listed, well, except maybe Justin Trudeau, has made a statement that it's in some way in line with his own political agenda. For example, the president of Egypt, El-Sisi, has declared a snap election, making it sooner because there is a severe economic crisis. He has a country that clearly supports the Palestinians en masse, as opposed to the Israelis, and just today he has given a speech saying that Israel is trying to push the Palestinians into Egypt in this way, and they don't want them in Egypt. If Israel wants to evacuate them, he mentioned evacuation, responding to Israel's request to open the checkpoints and let them into the Sinai Peninsula. Let Israel host them in Negev because it seems to them that in this way it will first expel the Palestinians from Gaza, then it will expel the Palestinian Arabs from the West Bank of Jordan, and then these movements will completely solve the Arab question. The accusations of El-Sisi fit into his overall political vision. King Abdullah has absolutely the same agenda. I will remind you that he is the king who runs the Palestinian state. When we talk about the formula of two states for two peoples, we do not take into account that there is already one Palestinian state and we are talking about creating a second one. That's why, of course, he cannot, with all his will, with all his restraint, say anything bad, because the reaction of his subordinates, his subjects, will be completely different. Speaking about Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is one of the regional players who claims as much influence as possible in Jerusalem, including the patronage of the holy sites of Islam. He competes in this with the civilian authorities. There were times when all of East Jerusalem was covered with Turkish flags, precisely to show that they were being protected by Turks, not Jordanians. So in the current situation, none of them are thinking about Israelis, Palestinians, or the poor people who died in that hospital, but they are thinking about promoting one or another of their political agendas, which in the vast majority of cases is either clearly on the side of Hamas or at the very least not in favor of Israel. This is about Israel being at war with Hamas, not the Palestinians. But at the same time, the people who claim to support the Palestinians against Israel are actually claiming to support Hamas, not the Palestinians, who are its hostages. There was a warning that Biden was on his way to ask Benjamin Netanyahu very tough questions. There is a very interesting article by Thomas Friedman, a journalist, a columnist for the New York Times, who is considered to be close to the closest to Biden, and very often broadcasts things that, in all likelihood, Biden will say or want to say, but can't. Being an official of that rank, the Friedman as a journalist can say them out loud. What we can understand from his publication is roughly that Americans will either try to keep Israel from a ground operation, motivated by, among other things, the terrible destruction and additional casualties that will be in the Gaza Strip, including the terrible blow to Israel, which itself will lose its soldiers, and at the same time will be much more severely traumatized. Most importantly, Biden, as I understand it, came to check out what Israel's plan is the day after the Gaza takeover. If the goal is still the same, Israel will resort to this and fully deprive Gaza of its protection of Hamas. Which organization exactly is going to take over the reins of the Gaza Strip after that? How does Israel see it the next day? The Americans apparently do not want to remain in a position where after the war there will be some territory of total chaos, not subject to anyone at all, with total devastation, while all of this will have to be healed by Western donors. These are the topics that are surely being discussed. No one knows what to do with Gaza until there is a force that is ready to say, "Guys, we are coming after you and we are taking Gaza under our control." Such forces in general can only be found under the control of Muhammad Abbas, that is, under the control of the Palestinian authorities in Ramallah. No such signals have come from him so far. He himself is a very old man who is already preparing to retire. Neither have we heard anything like that from his potential successors or top leaders. Maybe it is at the level of consultations right now. In fact, it is not known what will happen next, because any forecast that will be voiced is unrealistic. We cannot exclude that the strike on the hospital was carried out deliberately to complicate Biden's visit. We still cannot exclude, although we very much hope it won't happen for a variety of reasons, that Hezbollah will enter the war. Hezbollah has never gone to war for the Palestinian side. It is worth mentioning they are two completely different organizations. Moreover, some time ago, when Assad's regime was under attack and Hezbollah was defending it, Hamas refused to do so. In both Iran and Syria, Hamas is perceived as traitors. Relations with them were restored later, but this is something absolutely different now. US military aid is, as a rule, weapons or ammunition expressed in monetary terms. That is, usually in such cases, the money is not transferred to us, but America starts to supply us with additional shells, some additional items that have been requested. In this case, there may be an exception for Israel. I think that now it is simply a question of financial formalization of the additional military assistance that America is already providing. It is well known that an additional flight has already arrived. Also, it is not a secret that there are American warehouses here, so it is known that there will be additional supplies. There is one in the area of Cyprus. It's not one aircraft carrier, it's an entire carrier group. There are also 4 ships and a nuclear submarine underneath them attached to the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford. That's about 90 aircrafts on board, of which 2/3 are strike aircraft, air defense systems, and missile defense systems. Well, basically, it's a naval landing force. Yesterday, there were like 4,000 of them. There are special forces separately existing here. In addition, F-15 fighter jets, if I'm not mistaken in the model name, have been moved onto the region. There are rumors that special forces may be involved in the release of American hostages. There is absolutely no information if these hostages were not taken out of Gaza in any way, because that would be a real nightmare, but theoretically, I will say again, the smuggling tunnels that lead from the Gaza Strip into Egyptian territory, into the Sinai Peninsula, are not tightly controlled by the Egyptian authorities. The other thing is that now the Israel army is additionally in control of them, and Egypt has probably received a separate warning from the American authorities to make sure that Gaza is really hermetically sealed, not as usual. But yes, American involvement in one situation or another is expected. Now it seems that America is about to introduce additional legislation so that Congress can give Biden a quick authorization if he decides to declare hostilities.